Hi, my name is Michelle Fields, and I'll be presenting a speech on vaccinations. Behind me, you can see a board that I created with images I got offline. It has the history of vaccinations, and right in the center, you'll see quotes that I got from people on Facebook. Those that were involved chose not to be video recorded, but they did send me their comments and their opinions and everything via direct messenger, and I have included them on this board. We'll go through them in a little bit. Vaccinations have been a controversial subject for many, many years. Back in the olden days, they didn't have vaccinations, yet people lived long and fruitful lives. Kids were allowed to play outside and expose their body to different bacteria and pathogens and viruses, which allowed their body to naturally build up an immunity to these things. As time went on and bacteria changed and viruses mutated, the body was unable to fight off some of those diseases, thus making doctors have to work harder and more diligently to find out how can we stop this and how can we prevent this from getting worse? How can we prevent this from spreading all around the world? See what happens once a child or a person is exposed to certain viruses, bacteria, and antigens. It sends the body into a state of shock while trying to fight it off. Something just as simple as a common cold can send the body into a full state of shock, trying to find out what's invading me, what's happening to my body. I have to fight this off. Vaccinations were first discovered by Dr. Edward Jenner in 1796 when he inoculated a 13-year-old boy with the smallpox virus. When I refer to the term inoculation, it's when you take the disease from an infected person and you inject it into an uninfected person to help build immunity to it. After closely following his test subject, it was noted that the person did in fact develop an immunity to the disease, and this was when the first vaccine was created. It was called the smallpox vaccination. Before the actual term vaccination was created, it was termed variation or inoculation. And again, it's when you take the disease from an infected person and you inject it into the arm of an uninfected person. After years and years of trial and error and many, many deaths in between, they finally got it. Doctors came up with a way to inject viruses, some live, some halfway live, as they call it. And they were able to help people build a natural immunity to different viruses and different bacteria. In 1852, the first law was passed that required school children to be immunized in order to attend public school. In 1879, Dr. William Pasteur developed the first laboratory-created vaccination. He injected chickens with the virus, which of course we now call the chickenpox, and saw how it affected them before he did it on human beings. And there was a good survival rate. They started to test it on humans, and thus we have the varicella virus, the varicella vaccination. Now skip ahead many, 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 many years. I found a study on procon.org that says most childhood vaccinations are 90 to 99% effective in preventing childhood diseases. According to Shot at Life, a United Nations Foundation partner organization, approximately 2.5 million children are saved from preventable diseases every year thanks to vaccinations. The Center for Disease Control estimated that 732 American children were saved from death, and 322 million cases of childhood illnesses were prevented between 1994 and 2014 due to vaccinations. Since the discovery of the measles vaccine, childhood deaths due to measles has decreased by 74%. As it relates to the general public, there's a term coined herd immunity that refers to when a critical portion, which is the percentage of people who need to be vaccinated to provide immunity, of a population is vaccinated against a contagious disease, it is unlikely that an outbreak of the disease will occur, so most members of the community will be protected. In other words, if we all get our kids vaccinated against one simple virus, let's say the measles, what are the odds that our community will have an outbreak of the measles? Very slim to none. In most public and private schools, immunizations have become a requirement. Immunizations have become such a crucial part of life that most employers, especially in the healthcare market, require certain immunizations, specifically the flu. Nowadays, You have to have the flu shot in order to be in the healthcare field. And if you refuse to get the flu shot, or if it's a religious belief, you have to walk around with a mask on to protect you from others and to protect others from you. According to the CDC, all immunizations carry the risk of severe and even fatal side effects. A severe reaction called anaphylaxis is said to only occur in 1 to 1 million people. It has been reported that by the National Vaccine Center that some immunizations are linked to asthma, diabetes, autism, learning disabilities, and other chronic illnesses. There are also many religions, that frown upon vaccinations. By enforcing immunizations, many people lose their right to practice their religious belief. According to the Church of Illumination, the teachings of the church unequivocally affirm that injections of vaccines and inoculations are a violation of are a violation of these biblical teachings. Immunizations and vaccinations are a form of blood pollution because they have devastating effects on the regeneration of the soul that each church member seeks to attain. Vaccines are very beneficial for the general public. It has been found that vaccines save approximately $1.38 trillion in medical costs. According to UNICEF, an additional $6.2 billion could be saved if more vaccines were given out, especially in areas of high disease and high pollution, like some third world countries who don't have access to these vaccines. That is where we see more of the olden viruses taking over, the measles, the rubella, the mumps, things that we don't see quite often here in America, polio virus and things like that, because we do have access to those vaccines here where they don't. So they do have lots of outbreaks from these diseases. That fact alone says a lot. If third world countries don't have access to these vaccines that we have access to, and we can see it is factual that we are not as sickly as they are over there, that says how beneficial vaccines can be. Yes, I'm sure there are people and there are stories and there are assumptions that you're going to hear saying that vaccines cause certain diseases and that vaccines have certain side effects. Everything has a side effect. Every medication has a side effect. Everything that's not naturally made in the human body has a side effect. With that being said, this speech is not to influence you to get your kids vaccinated or to get yourself vaccinated. This speech is merely to encourage you to have the knowledge that you need to make an informed decision. One of the participants in my survey on Facebook sent me a very, very nice quote. It's a picture of me, and it's right in the center of my board. I'll focus in on it now and I'll read it. Right in the center, it says, "What if I told you by saying you're anti-vaccine, you're actually saying you're pro-disease?" What would you get from that? Take that. Think about that. Let that digest. What if by saying you're anti-vaccine, you're pro-disease? Reverse it. What if by saying you're anti-disease, you're pro-vaccine? You have to look at it from both ways. Arm yourself with the knowledge to make an informed decision. Thank you.